Okay, so we all saw what happened at the White House Correspondents' dinner over the weekend on Saturday night. Somebody allegedly ran up through there trying to pew pew the president. And they have a suspect. I'm not going to get into all those details right now. What I am going to talk about is one interesting aspect. Some folks are calling conspiracy theory, and not going to front, is a little suspect. But there's one thing that I feel like I'm not seeing enough discussion about, particularly in the mainstream media space. Something that was said on Fox News that just kind of makes you go, you know, let's get into it. Hey, what up there, Forward Up Newsies? I'm Skylar the Writer. So glad to be here with you. And yeah, as you probably heard, as I'm sure you've heard by now, there was a supposed assassination attempt. Does anybody else notice that anytime Donald Trump's poll numbers slide below a certain level, all of a sudden something major happens? There's like another assassination attempt, even though, none of these people ever seem to hit him. And I'm not saying that they need to, but you would just think in a country where there are literally more guns than people. You know what? Let me stop. Anyway, there was, the all the hubbub, all the drama of, everything that happened. There was something that was said on Fox News that night that's really not even just like stuck with me, but has really making me question a lot of things. And it's telling that not enough of, in my opinion, not enough of mainstream media is really talking about this. But yeah, peep this clip from reporter Aisha Hasni. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Apologies if not. The Fox News reporter Aisha Hasni, when she was dialed into the network to give her play-by-play of the evening's events. Listen to what she says about her conversation with Nicholas Riccio. I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. Nicholas Riccio, the husband of Caroline Levitt, who is the press secretary for Donald Trump. Listen to this.
I want to just quickly tell you, I was sitting next to Caroline Levitt, the press secretary's husband. He was one of our guests. He was seated right next to me, and right as the dinner was starting, the national anthem happened, and then he kind of leaned over and said, I watched you on TV, you do a great job. You need to be very safe. And he was just very serious when he said that to me. And he kind of looked around the room and he said, there are some...
Sounds like we lost Aisha's phone there. And this happens, by the way, especially when you have so many people attempting to utilize the same cell service at the same time. I did want to add this. While we had a moment, I was just reading.
Y'all heard that, right? Quote, you need to be very safe. He was very serious when he said that to me. And he kind of looked around the room and said, there are some, and then boom, the call drops. They dropped the call, and all of a sudden, and listen to the reporter, that like the anchors at Fox about, oh yeah, that sometimes happens, with the cell signals and everything, and da 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 da. First of all, we not stupid. Second of all them other phones can work in there. All them other phones can take videos and all this stuff. We got videos of all of this mess from like 120 different angles. But you mean to tell me her phone call gets cut off? Like, what are you like? What are we saying? What are we doing here? Like what are you saying that? Like, is she on a cricket phone? Is she on? Is she on some like prepaid phone that you're trying to say has bad reception? Because at this point, and a lot of people might not know this, but at this point, a lot of them prepaid phones, pretty much all those prepaid phones, are on the same network. So the call quality is going to be just as good as a traditional phone with a traditional phone plan. So what are you So what are you trying to say, Mr. Fox News? What are y'all trying to say? You really think we're that dumb? You think we are that stupid? What it sounds like to me, and y'all let me know that in the comments, it sounds like to me that Caroline Levitt's husband, Nicholas Riccio, 60 or 61-year-old real estate developer, she's 29, I think. We're not going to get into that age difference because that ain't none of our business. But he is telling her, yo, be careful. He's telling this news anchor, yo, be careful. And when you add that into something else Caroline Levitt had said earlier that night, it's all starting to look a little more extra suspect. This clip of Caroline Levitt out going into, doing an interview before she goes into the Correspondents' Dinner.
Ready to rumble, is he not?
He is ready to rumble. I will tell you, this speech tonight will be classic Donald J. Trump. It'll be funny. It'll be entertaining. There will be some shots fired tonight in the room. So everyone should tune in. It's going to be really great. I'm looking forward to hearing it.
I love it all. And you wrote most of it, you said.
I can't take credit. In true Donald Trump fashion, the man puts his pen to the paper himself. So it's a lot of his own work.
Yeah, so now on their own, her words wouldn't have really caught my attention or really anybody else's, but in the greater context of what happened later that night with this pew pew from the guy that came to the Correspondents' Dinner, under that context, and then paired with what her husband allegedly said to this Fox News reporter at the Correspondents' Dinner, it's all starting to feel a little extra, like, I don't know, call me a conspiracy theorist if you want to. Mind you, that term in and of itself was actually cobbled together by, I believe it was the CIA, or was it the FBI? I think it was the CIA that created that term. So take that with a, grain of salt or whatever. But yeah, very highly suspect. And I'm not hearing enough of mainstream media, not just talking about this, but looking into this, right? Because why are they not calling that Fox News reporter and being like, okay, I'm sorry, excuse me, who said what? Who? They said what? Who? You should be safe. They should be reaching out to Caroline Levitt and her husband if they can get to him. He probably wouldn't say anything, but they should be looking down into that story, that line of questioning. And as best I could tell, and I'm just some dude on the internet, they're not doing that. And this is just another example of mainstream media failing us, even if what they should be talking about is something that too many people see could maybe be or not be real. But enough of that. Let's get into what you can do if you're even in an active shooter situation, right? Because whether or not you think that this shooting at the Correspondents' Dinner was real or not, whether it is real or not, it is almost irrelevant is irrelevant in the sense that we know that active shootings take place, sadly, in America, in the United States, all the time. So let's get into some tips and tricks that could help save your life or the life of others if you're ever caught in a active shooter situation. If you ever find yourself in a active shooter situation, right? Like there's somebody out there attacking people with a weapon, with pew pew. Saying that because this is YouTube. Here's some good tips for you to try to follow, right? To try to remember. This comes from the University of Virginia, UVA, from their emergency management department. A lot of schools, a lot of colleges, probably all colleges at this point, if we're being honest, have some sort of how-to guide or tips guide for this, because sadly, these mass shootings are becoming more and more common. And, UVA went through a mass shooting just a few years ago and, lost some people. So, check your local college, whatever. There might be some things that are more specific to where you are if you're a student to go online, or these are actually really good tips really for anywhere. So let's go through just some of these. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I will provide the link and the link in the description of this video. So this article here is titled Tips for Surviving an Active Shooter Attack. So we see that there. And the first thing they say here is like how to respond when an active shooter is in your vicinity. So they say, quickly determine the most reasonable way to protect your life. Run, hide, or fight. Seconds count. And, I'm going to read that again. Seconds count. The faster you're able to make a decision could really be what saves your life or the life of others. But they say, if you run, hide, or fight. So like run. If there is an accessible escape path, evacuate. Act quickly to put as much distance between yourself and the shooter as possible. This isn't about being a hero. This is not about getting a video like we saw in that White House Correspondents' Dinner. Not everybody, but a lot of people pulling out their phones trying to get video and stuff. And I get it, they're journalists, whatever. But I feel like a lot of times we see people do this when they're not journalists. And now, if you're in an active shooter situation, that is not the time to be farming for content for the socials. You need to get your ass up and out of there. Okay, so run. If there's an accessible escape path, evacuate. It says have an escape route and a plan in mind. Now, we're not thinking about that when you go out somewhere in public, but the sad reality is maybe that is something we should all start putting in the back of our minds, right? Like if I'm going into this grocery store, I'm going into this Target. Well, not Target because we on boycott for Target. We still boycotting you, Target. But if I go into this department store and something pops off, where are my exits, right? And it's very much like when you ride a plane where they say your nearest exit might be behind you. Recognize that too. Like it may not be in front, it might be behind you. So just map out where those exits are if you can. It says go regardless of whether others agree to follow. Take care of you and yours first, and try to help others if you can, if that makes sense. Don't just drop people. But if people aren't willing to run and you think that there's a legitimate path of escape, then sometimes you gotta leave people where they at and go out. The best thing you can do in that situation is run. It says leave your belongings. Your stuff is not as important as your life. Keep your hands visible and empty, because you know how these police out here, you could run out the back and run into some police, and you know how they love to pew pew. Okay, as soon as they see you, especially if you are darker than washed khaki. Okay, they will step in and shoot you in a heartbeat. Let's keep it real. We've seen too many examples of this. However, that is unless you live in Uvalde, Texas, because we know those cops ain't worth shit, and they don't go out to help and stop mass shootings. But let me get off my soapbox for that. You can also, if you can't run, then hide, right? And there's more tips there under run, but there's hides, right? If you cannot escape, find a place to hide and barricade yourself. Choose a place that is out of view. Lock the door and block it with heavy furniture or office equipment. Hide behind solid objects away from the door. If possible, choose a place that doesn't trap you or restrict your options to move. Because if you need to bust out, you need to bust out. Don't corner yourself if you can avoid it. Turn off lights and computers and turn off your phones, because we've seen in too many movies. Y'all seen A Quiet Place. Okay, we've seen examples. You know what happens. Turn your phone off. Not even just vibrate, right? Turn the vibrate off too, because if you're hiding for your life, you do not want to get got because your phone went off. Other things here, call 911 if it's safe. And then we get to fight, right? So as a last resort, keywords there, as a last resort. Because again, this is not a moment for you to be a hero. You aren't Jason Bourne. I don't care what movies you saw. You cannot do them moves. Unless you are actual MMA, or black belt, whatever. And even if you are, now is not the time to fight. Now is the time to escape with your life, right? And if you can, the lives of others. But if you have to fight, and only if your life is in danger and you cannot flee, attempt to take the shooter down. Your chance of survival is greater if you try to incapacitate the shooter by acting as aggressively as possible, throwing items and improvising weapons, yelling, committing to your actions. Don't punk out. If it's between you and a shooter, then it's between you and that shooter, and it needs to be you at the end of it. Okay, at the end of things, you need to be the one standing. So put your all into it, and go from there. Now we have here, when law enforcement arrives, so this is the next thing. When law enforcement arrives, law enforcement will act to stop the shooter as soon as possible. Again, unless you're in Uvalde, Texas. Officers will proceed directly to where the last shots were heard. Officers may be armed with many weapons and may wear tactical equipment. They may shout commands and push people to the ground for their safety. The first officers on the scene will not stop to help injured persons. That also leads me into another thing. A lot of people might not know this, but the police don't have a legal obligation to, quote, protect and serve you. There was a Supreme Court case. Maybe I'll put a link to that story in the description as well. But yeah, the Supreme Court said that the police do not have a legal obligation to help or save you. And yet, I'm wondering the same question you're probably asking yourself now. Well, then what the hell are the police for? That's another video, but let's finish the rest of this. Keep your hands visible and empty. Avoid any quick movements toward officers. Avoid pointing, because again, you don't want them to assume you have a pew-pew. Do not attempt to stop officers to ask for help. That's an interesting one, but I'm sure there's reasoning behind that. And evacuate in the direction from which officers are entering the premises. Again, evacuate in the direction from which officers are entering the premises. So again, if you want to see more of this, that's pretty much the whole thing there. But yeah, this is from the Emergency Management Office at the University of Virginia. Again, pretty much every school, university college university is gonna have some version of this. And be sure to check your local university or whatever if they have something more specific. You could even possibly check your local police department's website as well. But yeah, check that out. See if you can commit as much of these things to memory as possible. And sadly, maybe you might need to actually just print this out or save it on your phone or something so you can have it ready for you. Because when you're in the midst of an emergency situation like that, I would imagine it's very hard to remember all of these things. But if you prepare ahead of time, look at this ahead of time, at least hopefully you will have something in the back of your mind that will help you remember all of these different things. That's all I have for you now, Newsies. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. Let us know what your thoughts are about this whole story in the comments. Do you think Fox News was trying to cover something up in regards to that reporter saying that the husband of the press secretary was hinting that this may or may not be planned? Or were they trying to get ahead of people running with some sort of conspiracy theory? Let us know down in the comments. Don't forget to share, like, subscribe. You can also follow us on social media. You can follow me on social media as well, but you can also follow the show. So follow at Forward Up News as well on all the major social media platforms. And yeah, Newsies, as we always until next time, as we always say, be good to yourself, be good to others, and if you can't do that, at the very least, check out these survivor tips because it's really important and it could help save your life one day. All right, Newsies. Until next time, thank you and peace.
Have you been in space?
No, motherfucker, we got bills and